Good day, everyone. This is Dr. David Phelps of the Freedom Founders Mastermind Community and Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at the past, 2020, which we have crossed now over into 2021, but look at the past. Why? Because the past always provides us some elements of lessons. What comes out of the adversity, the tumultuous economy, the COVID-19 that we had? What did we learn from that? What pivots did we make? What do we keep in place going forward? And now looking into the new year, what opportunities do we have as small business owners, as entrepreneurs for growth? So there's two sides of this, and I've got one of my best friends and mentors with us today, Mr. Daniel Marcus. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Hello, sir. How are you? Super happy to be here.
Oh, so glad to have you here. I have the great privilege of having regular conversations with Daniel. He's been working with me and our team for the last several years, and I just consider him one of the great thought leaders that I know, period. And I'm going to give you a little bit of his background so you can appreciate where our conversation is coming from today. Daniel Marcus is the co-founder and CEO of Growth Institute, the leading online executive education company for C-level executives at fast-growing firms. He is a keynote speaker and a CEO coach with a mission to help 1 million entrepreneurs scale their impact and reduce drama in the process. Well, I love that. Drama is our middle name in most of our companies, right? Totally. He is a member of YPO and EO and is a certified coach in the scaling up methodology. He's a graduate of EO's premier CEO program, The Birthing of Giants, and he holds a BS in industrial and systems engineering from ITESM, that's Monterey Tech, and an MBA from Babson College. Daniel was an early entrepreneur. He started a t-shirt business at the age of 8 and then partnered with a car detailing franchise to provide cleaning services throughout his high school years. In the year 2000, he built an online trading business that was acquired within 6 months by what was then Argentina's largest financial player of the time. Daniel's next business launched just before the very untimely crash of the financial markets in 2008. His business was shut down, and Daniel took on $1 million in debt. Gosh, who hasn't been there? I mean, and some amount of debt. So the turnaround process is amazing. His business was, as I said, was shut down. Despite that setback, Daniel had an abundance of experience and successes under his belt, and had recently been recognized in Expansion Magazine's 30 Under 30. As a serial entrepreneur, Daniel quickly realized that CEOs are often the bottleneck of the company. In the same way that you can't solve a problem without first elevating your mindset, a business can't evolve beyond what the CEO can handle. So true. Daniel partnered with Vern Harnish in 2012 to bring executive training to the masses. What was once reserved for a very small niche of wealthy companies is now available to all CEOs and their executive teams. In less than a decade, Growth Institute has been recognized among the top 5,000 fastest growing companies in the USA, with over 40,000 members across 64 countries. It's a pleasure to have you, and I will second everything that's in your bio. Your tenacity, your exuberance for helping what is really the backbone of a capitalist country is small business, and we take on so many things, Daniel, as CEOs of our, I'll call small to mid-sized companies. We're not leviathans out there. We're out there just crunching out every day. And as you said here, so many times we as the visionary, as the owner, are the bottlenecks. So great to have you here. You have so much experience and such a wide range of. You've got coaches on the ground. You're working with people all the time. So your pulse on the marketplace, meaning what's going on with small businesses and mid-sized companies, is very relevant to today's discussion. I'm gonna let you kind of run, but I kind of want to look back at 2020 and what kind of iterations and pivots you saw people make and what's kind of sticking, like what do we grab onto? And then let's go into 2021 and where are the opportunities for growth there?
Awesome. Thank you. So 2020, no one was expecting, of course, COVID. We were already in a complicated economy, if you want to call it, and a lot of geopolitical changes. We've been expecting that the whole decade of the 20s was going to be a complicated decade because of all the geopolitical reorganization of the world. But then COVID came and just took it to the next level. I really believe COVID was kind of the pin that blew the balloon that we've been building for since the last crisis, 2008, let's say. The US has had an amazing growth rate. Indeed, just to give you, let's just compare numbers to get an understanding. The economy in 2019 was $88 trillion. In 2000, just 20 years before, the whole economy was 33 trillion.
Wow.
So we grew in 20 years by, let's say, 1.5 times. We went from 33 to 88 trillion. It's an amazing run economically in the world. The amount of wealth created in the world has been just astonishing. So I think that's where we've been. And hey, we've been having, the US has had, or the world has a crisis, financial crisis every 8 or 10 years.
Right.
Biggest run in the US in expansion, amazing growth, amazing opportunities, a lot of wealth building. And we knew that this decade was going to be a complicated decade just because how the geopolitical system is reorganizing. And then COVID came. And there were several learnings that I think they're important. The first one, the 2020 just gave us a glimpse of what's going to be the whole decade. So it's a great learning, and it gave us a very fast opportunity to learn and really adjust our businesses to be more nimble. As an example, a lot of companies just let their office go, and we went remote. I had 2 offices, in my case, Austin, Texas, and Mexico City. In 2 weeks time after COVID, we renegotiated contract with both and left both of our offices. And we went virtual immediately in 2 weeks. And I've had a lot of clients going remotely like that. Indeed, I was having a coaching call just prior to this, a Bangladesh investors with a company in Denver, and they went remote, and they're a physical company, and they went remote. And I was like, how do you guys went remote? And they said, we don't need the office. Everyone has been remote for the last 8 or 9 months, and we realized we could do everything remote.
So in that case, not going back to the office, and your offices are you going back to any kind of physical location at all?
I think if you ask me what I want, I would like to have an office because I really believe it's important, the interaction, the human interaction, but once or twice a week.
Okay.
So I would love to rent an office and say, hey, Mondays, this office space is for us on Mondays, and we'll meet in Mondays in the office, and then everyone will go home and work from home the rest of the days. But I think it's very important to still see each other on the face, hug each other, and discuss a team member's life. Yeah. So I'm looking for space now for this year, but something that we could meet once or twice a week. That's it. But I think as a society, we learned and developed a lot of tools to be remotely really, really fast. That's a big learning. Indeed, I do online education. That's my main business and coaching. And I've been preaching to do remote for the last 8 years. I had my business online training for 8 years. And all my clients, or most of my clients, said, I'll pay you triple, but you fly to me and we do it in my office. And I was like, online is great. They didn't trust me. Now we have to do everything online. And they said, hey, it's great. We love online. And I was like, I've been telling you this for the last 8 years.
Well, they can still pay you triple and just do it virtually. I mean, it's okay. It's okay with you, right?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was, you can't imagine how many times I heard that. I will pay you triple, but you have to fly to me. Mm-hmm. I was last year, just an example, 2019, I flew 200,000 miles in the year. Just to give a perspective, the round the world is almost 25,000 miles. So I went around the world 8 times in 2019. In 2020, my last flight was March 10th. I had like 8 or 10 flights before March 10th, but then I had to stop flying and get my revenue, and we grew like 30% in the year, and I decreased my traveling to 0. So I think as a society, we learn how adaptable we are and how resourceful we are to figure out ways to do things. So
for kind of a typical or traditional brick and mortar business, and we're talking to my tribe are typically brick and mortar, a lot of professional practice owners, that kind of thing. So they have to have a location. But how does this portray into their ability to be nimble and adaptable? In other words, in terms of this way, I think, outsourcing some of the functions that don't need to be done right there, peer to peer, point to point with, say, in this case, your patients. certainly you have to see your patients in the office, but what about medical billing and your marketing? Do you have to have everybody in house, or can you now, with the resources we have available with technology, now we can outsource, and that again creates a more nimble infrastructure, so that when you do have something a cash flow crunch caused by the economy, or maybe just caused by a fluctuation in your own business.
In your own business, yeah.
Now you can get through those narrows a lot easier, right, without having to offload a lot of capital infrastructure, which is expensive, and you have to sell at discounts, and it's just like, it's very messy, right?
That's correct. I 100% agree on that. And before we believe it couldn't be done, now we know it has to be done. It can be done. So as a society, I think we learned a lot. Yes. And let's go as an example to a dentist. The nurses that help you with the teeth and all that, they have to be on the office. Right. But as you said, all the billing and everything, they don't even have to be on the building. They could be remote. You pay them by the hour. You pay them by results. And you have more of your expenses being variable or not tied to an office.
Not tied to an office. And you also get typically a lot more redundancy. Meaning, because again, the hard thing for a small business, let's face it, is we rely on, sometimes too much reliance on a key person. Key person who is very valuable, because that key person has been with us. They're a strong, competent employee, and they know everything, right? And all of a sudden something happens to disrupt that, and all of a sudden they're gone for whatever reason. Wow, now we're in a hole. But now if you've outsourced a lot of this, then you've got systems in place, because systems are required. Typically in small business, we don't have systems. We're just kind of day to day, kind of keeping things together. And when we have those few times when we have a great staff, which is a small percentage, when things are working well, we go, oh, this is great. And then the next week, boom, something blows up, and we're back to reinventing our business all over again.
But as an example, Mayra, you've changed emails with Mayra, my assistant, many times.
Yes.
Mayra lives in Querétaro, Mexico. She's been my assistant for over 10 years. I think the last time I saw her was like 3 years ago.
Is that right? Yeah.
And she runs my operation. She answers all my emails, pays for all the bills, get all the hotels, reservations, everything.
Yeah.
And works from Querétaro. And by the way, she has moved. She's married to someone from Ireland. And she goes to Ireland on vacation for 1 or 2 months a year with her husband. And she just emails me and said, hey, do you mind? I'm going to be in European time the next 2 months. Do you mind? And I was like, no. Or I'm going to indeed, she moved to Toronto. Mm-hmm. She lived in my same city for a year. And I think we saw each other twice in the whole year. We're just used to be remote. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we learned a lot of how to be remote. And I don't think we're going to go back exactly as we were before. We're never going to go back. And the gig economy is going to just blow up. You're going to hire a lot of people by results that are experts in their field just to do 1 or 2 things, and you're going to pay them by the hour, by the results. There's a book that I read some years ago. I think it's called How New Organizations Update or something. And they explain that the best organizations of the future are the ones that are going to be able to hire freelancers or outsource and be able to deal with them the best. And the book was written 10 years ago. And I think we're going to go to that.
So that's a mindset, and it's a skill set. Mindset first to adopt that thinking, because again, when you've been doing things a certain way, it's very conventional. Not thinking about not having full-time employees right there with you, it's a hard thing to overcome. But once you adopt the mindset, then taking a little bit of risk to develop the skill set pays off in huge dividends, right? And that's sometimes the fear that we have, Daniel, small business, right? We don't want to disrupt what's going on, but you're right. This year, major disruption. So it's kind of like a clean slate. I mean, we all have a chance in our business to say, hey, what the heck? We had to get through all this. Why don't we keep experimenting a little bit? Not massively, but trying some things differently, because we've got to. We've got to continually be changing, evolving. As you said, I think COVID just accelerated. It was a catalyst of what portends to be a lot more volatility ahead. We can't pinpoint what it's going to be, but let's just say it's going to be. So getting yourself nimble, as you said, adaptable, the ability to kind of turn things on a dime are going to be critical. What other lessons came up with a lot of your clients in terms of financial metrics and operating liquidity, having cash flow. What would you say to that extent? Because not all businesses are coming back, right? I mean, certain sectors got hurt too badly, and even if they had all the margin in the world, it's just the model right now with COVID. It's not viable. But for those that made it through financially, what kind of metrics did they have, and what are you kind of advocating for going down the road to again kind of protect against potential downturns again?
So as an example on the reliance as society, most of my clients end the year much better than expected. And they said, if you asked me in April, if I could predict that I was going to close the year the way I closed it, I will tell you it was impossible. And we had a good year. I had a lot of clients that grew this last year in 2020. They had significant improvements in revenue with significant improvements in costs. So we figure out, we know it can be done in a more efficient way. Being remote reduce a lot of expenses, but also raise a lot of productivity. If you have the right systems and the right ways to measure the development of your team, you're able to make more money or be more efficient. Other thing that we were surprised that I continue to hear from my clients, they said, I was too busy between traveling and dinners and whatever. And now that I had all this time that I was home and I was working in Zoom all day, I had a lot of time to really look at bottlenecks. And I figure out and clean a lot of bottlenecks of my business that I hadn't seen before. Or I knew I had a problem, but I never had the energy and the time to tackle them. And I really fixed a lot of bottlenecks. Said, hey, I knew this team member was not working well, or I knew the sales process was not right. And now I have the time to sit down, clean my playbooks, reanalyze my team, be able to be more present to give better leadership. So they fix a lot of bottlenecks last year. And now they say, I want to go back to the past, the way I was doing before. I realize how powerful I could be if I'm more present. And we disregard how busy life was in the past. And hey, getting to a plane to go and see a client or go to a conference, it was so easy and so inexpensive that we just go into planes and do things. And now that we had to be home, we had all this time and energy that we figure out how to do things and clean things. And the bottlenecks, I was surprised of how many like deep things that were entrenched or being part of the business that they had the time and the energy to fix it. And I think that was really powerful last year.
We found the same thing in our tribe, Freedom Founders, professional practice owners, certainly during COVID, middle of March and the shutdown, most of our people's offices were shut down for anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. And of course, that's major panic, right? Until there was some PPP money coming through, but that was all a lot of angst. And how do we keep things going? And I know from your standpoint, what I saw in our group was that those who took a proactive approach. Okay, let's not get into crisis and panic. Let's, as you said, take the opportunity. Okay, we got time. We're not going to the office. So being proactive with a client base. In this case, we have patients. So communicating with them right off the cuff. To let them know that you're still viable. You're coming back and you'll take care of emergencies. Being proactive with staff, and then, as you said, having the time to finally get off that hamster wheel of always doing, and have time to think and identify the constructs, the bottlenecks that were prohibiting the efficiency of production. And we saw the same thing in our group. Many of our members are having as good a year as 2019, and some, as you said, are actually have exceeded that. And they're all going, we were down for 2.5, 3 months. I wonder how that happens, right? So I think that's huge lessons going forward. A quick question on that, because this is what you're really good at doing is you and your coaches really help business owners, help them to analyze, analytics. It's so hard for us as a business owner because we're in the weeds of the business, right? We just go running hard every day, putting out fires. Having someone from the outside look in and help dial in and ask questions. what are some of the ways, just quickly off the top of your head, that you help identify bottlenecks? What are some of the areas, maybe just the general areas where someone that are listening today could look for potential bottlenecks in their business?
So you have to ask the right question.
Mhm.
This is something I learned from Vern Harnish, my mentor and partner today. He said, getting the right answer, it's fairly easy. The problem is that we're chasing the wrong questions.
Yes.
And the best coaches usually ask you a lot of questions to try to help you see your business from a different mindset. And there's a book that I've read probably 10 times, Think and Grow Rich. And let me tell the story because I think it's really important. And that's kind of what I do with my clients. But there's something you could do on your own. There's a chapter in Think and Grow Rich that he tells stories that he had these virtual or imaginary board meetings. He sat down at a table and said, I'm sitting down with Einstein and with Steve Jobs and with all these famous people. Well, not Steve Jobs, he was not alive then, but and then said, I ask a question, and then each one answered the question. By the way, the first time I read the book, I said, this guy's crazy. I couldn't finish the book after that chapter. I said, this guy is nuts. And I didn't read the book. And then I continued to go through life and meeting people that I respected and admire that said the book changed their life. So I was like, how can I not get the book if all these people think it's such a good book? So I went back and reread it. And now I've read it, I said, like 10 times. And every time I read it, I learn something. But here's, as an example, if you said, hey, how would Einstein look at this, right? And now you put yourself on Einstein's position, and he would say, you haven't tried enough. You've tried 3 times, you failed 3 times, and that's not enough. I tried 1,000 times every time I invented something. So you haven't tried enough. And now you have a response under Einstein's point of view, but you could see it differently. I think that's what a coach should do. Said, hey, tell you a story, show you a video on YouTube or whatever, and help you see your business in a different angle. If you could not hire a coach, you could still ask the question, like if you were sitting in someone else's seat. And the best story that I have of this is Intel founders. Intel, the chip company, one of the biggest success histories of the world. They were in the memory chip business. And their board was asking them to go and migrate to the processor chip business. And they didn't want to go. They were so busy in the business and they believed they couldn't afford the change and all that. And one day the 2 founders, they were having a discussion, and one of them tells the other, hey, if we don't change the business to the processor chips business, the board member, the investors are going to fire us. And they said, if they fire us, they're going to hire someone new. What do you think that new person will do? That new person will change the whole business to the chip processing business. And they said, let's do that. So they both left the building physically, went to the outside garage, shake hands, they met again, and they said, okay, let's go back in. And they came back in, and they decided that they were going to change from memory chips to processing chips. And now that's what created Intel into the huge business that is today. So as a business owner, if you want to do that, ask the right questions from different point of views. And 2, read the trends. You have to understand the trends. So that will tell you where your business is going. You have to read a lot.
Yes.
If you want to be a successful business owner, you have to read at least an hour a day. Some learning and some trends. The amount of hours that I talk or read about AI and robotics and people said, hey, but you're not doing anything there. No, but I'm getting my brain used to these subjects and being comfortable around these subjects. And whenever there's a subject in my industry that I could apply based on the trend, I'm going to be more open and more willing to try. So it's really, really important that you ask a lot of questions in different points of view. And 2, you are reading and understanding the trends in the world.
Yeah, really good advice, Daniel. There's a saying that the greatest risk of future success is current success. right? So in other words, we're talking about a lot of businesses, fortunately, have gotten through the 2020 year and just said have met or exceeded 2019's numbers. So kind of taking a breath, feeling, ooh, that's good, and feeling pretty exuberant. That's certainly one threat, right? One threat of any company. What other that threat? Pick on that one, or anything else you see going forward that maybe we need to be aware of, and that could be geopolitical. It could be whatever. What do you see as potential threats for companies that right now are feeling pretty good about getting through 2020?
So just a quick quote. The founder of Ghost, it's a platform for angel investors. He said, if your company was successful in the 20th century, it's poised to fail in the 21st century. So what got you here won't get you there. Marshall Goldsmith book, really, really good. So I believe the whole decade of the 2030s, and this will need 2 more hours if we want to get deep into this, but the world moves in cycles, and we have this 100-year cycle that we're in the middle of what they call winter. And we know the capitalism system that we have already expired. The new world order that was created after World War II already expired. And as a society, we're looking for new systems, for new institutions, for new ways of running the world. And we need a period of discussion and adjustment. And we are already there. We're seeing a huge geopolitical change in the world. We're seeing a huge economical way in the world. Just see Bitcoin, what's been happening with cryptocurrencies. By the way, today, Bitcoin crossed the 38,000 mark.
I saw that.
And
Yes.
all cryptocurrencies passed the valuation of $1 trillion. All cryptocurrencies today are worth more than $1 trillion. They're nothing. They're not, they don't have a government behind, they don't have asset, they don't have gold. No, it's cryptocurrencies. And the trust of the population already created $1 trillion in valuation. That's telling you that $1 trillion of valuation is not trusting the financial systems that we have.
That's right.
So we have, as a society, we know the systems, procedures that brought us here as a society, the UN and everything already expired. We need to reinvent new world organizations, and we're going to invent them this decade. We know it's going to be a huge change on the 20s. So I would ask business owners to be as nimble as possible, have as many variable costs as possible. As an example, at the Growth Institute, we lowered our fixed expenses in over 30% this year. And our revenue grew over 30% of the year. And we're not going to go back. We put a lot of the salaries and expenses, even with vendors, we put variable. And we told them, hey, if you believe in us and you believe we're going to do great, come variable with us. And people are open to those things today. Last year, they were so busy, they had so many clients that were not open. Today, you have a huge opportunity to be able to bring a lot of your expenses variable. And then just last thing to close this on the CEO level, you have to really build a CEO system. I tell companies, hey, you have a system to do customer support and a system for production and a system of accounting. And then when I ask, what are your systems to run your company as the CEO, as the leader of the company? And usually we don't have a lot of systems there. We adapt to whatever the company needs No, you have to protect your process and your systems, and you have to build your own CEO system. You and I have been working on that. You know all my thought process. The CEOs that build all this system around them usually are able to scale their company faster, and as you said at the beginning, reduce the drama of the operation. Human beings, we are creatures of habit. We want habits, and we build habits in everything in our life, except on how we take decisions, how we communicate with our teams, and all that. So we strongly recommend you have to build a CEO system to help you be able to lead your company better, so you could scale faster and reduce the drama of the operation.
Really, really powerful. This is great, Daniel. We touched on some really key topics here. As you said, we could spend hours, we could spend days. So I'd love to bring you back again from time to time and just interject as we go through into this in this next decade, in this next year, and talk about some of these things. We'll do that again. Best place for people to contact, get more information about Growth Institute and what you do. Because I love bringing you here, and you didn't come here for me to sell you or sell Growth Institute. That's not what this is about. But I just think there's so much value, and you have so many different ways that people can interact with Growth Institute. I think it's important that I not hold back and not let people know a little bit more about how they might just initially engage with Growth Institute. So please go ahead and let us know how people could do that.
Thank you, amigo. Growth Institute, it's my company, growthinstitute.com. You could look for me on social media. I'm all social media, Daniel Marcos. But I'm writing a book that I'm publishing in the summer this year. And I have an introduction, like it's a booklet of around 20 pages that will give the audience how to really build a SEO system. It's called Impact Text. So I'll send you a link that you could put below the podcast and people could download and understand how to build a SEO system. We believe a SEO system is built in 3 areas. First on building a great team, and then building a great company. And we give you a lot of tools in each of these 3 areas for you to build your SEO systems. So I'll give you a link. People could download that below. They just have to put their name and email address, and they'll get all this free PDF that will give them a lot of value and a lot of understanding of the best systems of the best SEOs in the world.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel Marcus. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks for sharing your wisdom experience today with our audience.
Thank you, amigo.